Alright, the good guys are still on the quest to destroy the ring, and evil's on a quest to destroy good guys. So, hey, we got the two towers. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Warning this time, as before, this is going to be completely spoiler-filled, so you've been warned. There's no other way to talk about Lord of the Rings than to just spoiler it up. So as we saw at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring, the Fellowship is completely split off. Boromir died. Frodo was like, I'm going to Mordor alone, and then Samwise Gamgee's like, I'm going with you. So the two of them went off to do that. Merry and Pippin, the two other hobbits, were captured by Uruk-hai, which are pretty much orcs on steroids. Then Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are like, we're not going to abandon them to get tortured to death, so we're gonna go get our two hobbit friends back. So they're going after Merry and Pippin. Now we enter the Two Towers. And this movie starts out awesome. It's just going over the mountains, and you hear Gandalf throwing down with the Balrog, and it goes into the mountain, and it shows him toe-to-toe with the Balrog, and he's like, you shall not pass! Bam! Then the Balrog falls, he whips Gandalf's leg, and then he falls, and he's like, fly, you fools! Then when he falls, the camera goes down with him and shows what he did, and he's the biggest badass in Lord of the Rings history. Gandalf is fighting the Balrog. He just grabs him by the collarbone, he's taking his sword and just beating the shit out of him. Digging his sword into him, sparks and fire flying out of the Balrog. Balrog smacking him around, Gandalf will just grab onto his horn. The entire way down the mountain, you're like, this is insane! The Two Towers is a great movie, it really is, but for my money, it's the sweetest scene in the entire movie at the very beginning. Now, the Two Towers more or less concentrates on the world of mankind and Rohan. Rohan or Rohan, however you want to say it, has King Theoden. King Theoden's like a good guy, but he's being controlled by Saruman. I'm gonna touch on Saruman a bit because I haven't touched on him yet, and he's really important, and you kind of have to talk about him. He was the White Wizard, you know, the head of Gandalf's order, but he threw in his lot with Sauron. Now Sauron's using him to make a big Uruk-hai army to wipe out the world of man because Sauron's learned rumors that maybe Isildur's heir is coming back. That ain't good, not for him. So yeah, just wipe out every human being that lives, you'll eventually kill Aragorn. That's pretty much the plan. However, one thing Saruman did not count on is that there will be another White Wizard. It will be Gandalf the White. Yeah, Gandalf the White now. He was King Awesome Badass before when he was the Gray. Now he's the White. Evil has no shot. Now they showed that in the trailer. I thought that was a weird thing. I'm like, why would you show that? There are a lot of people out there that don't know that Gandalf is going to come back as Gandalf the White, or Saruman as he should be, however you want to see it. So it's the scene where Theoden's just he looks all crippled and gross and old, and Gandalf pretty much performs an exorcism with his staff against him, and Saruman's like, if I go, Theoden dies. And Gandalf overpowers him, and I love that scene for two reasons. One, Saruman learned that there is another White Wizard, and it is Gandalf, in which he is in trouble. And two, he's in trouble because Gandalf overpowered Saruman for the first time like ever. Yeah, Saruman learned a little bit of news of that day that just, it wasn't good news, not for him. Jumping over here, we have Frodo and Sam. It's pretty much, you know, the entire point of this entire story. Frodo is still going to Mordor to drop the ring into the volcano to take out Mr. Evil. Only thing is he doesn't really know the way. He and Sam are going in circles. The ring is really becoming a burden to Frodo. You really see the gravity of the situation weighing on Frodo, in which case, Samwise Gamgee, you see his role in this whole thing. Samwise Gamgee is Frodo's motivation. You really see that in the Two Towers. It culminates in Return of the King, but this is the first time you're like, oh, I get it. Samwise is actually badass. Awesome. But you see the scene stealer in the entire movie, and that is Gollum. Andy Serkis as Gollum was like, it was one of those roles where you're like, this is one of the most memorable performances ever. Gollum is a really wretched little creature. You've probably seen Gollum by now. He had the ring for 500 years, and he really wasn't much different from a hobbit when he first got it. The ring is so evil and so corrupting. Gollum is the end result of this. So you kind of look at Gollum, you're like, yeah, Frodo, you should really make haste with the process, or else you're gonna be like Gollum. Gollum's just such a tormented creature. You're like, you can tell he kind of wants to be good, but the dude has like multiple personalities, so he has this other voice in his head. There's a scene where he's talking to himself, and he's like, no, not master. Yes, precious face. Master's my friends. He don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. You're just like, that guy's got issues. He really does have issues too, but I love damaged characters like that. Gollum is pretty much the epitome of damaged character. Gollum was pretty much the character where people were like, yeah, the Academy needs to think about whether or not they should give an actor who did motion capture for a character an Oscar. Because Andy Serkis deserved it, and I'm just saying. And upon all this, Frodo and Sam run across Faramir. Now, Faramir is actually Boromir's brother. And you don't see this in the initial theatrical release. You're just like, oh, Faramir feels like he has something to prove, but why? You learn in Return Return of the King why, but in the special extended edition of Two Towers, you see why. Because his dad's a dick. So in the scene in the Two Towers when he's like, no, we're taking the ring to Gondor, you understand why. You just feel the weight on his shoulders where he's like, because my dad's a douche. Now, if there's one thing that slows the movie down a bit for me, it's actually the whole Merry and Pippin and the Ent thing. Now, Treebeard's an Ent. Ents are pretty much like walking trees, but they're tree herders. And he walks really slow with really long strides, and he talks really slow, which makes the scenes feel slow. Tree, I am no tree. I am an Ent. He talks a lot, and he talks about stories. You're supposed to feel this way because you're supposed to feel how Merry and Pippin feel, which is like, dude, we're hanging out with this really old guy who tells stories that we don't care about, and it's really putting us to sleep. However, you kind of feel that way too, so you're like, let's speed these scenes up, please. Get back to the whole Rohan thing, and Helms Deep, and Frodo and Sam, and Gollum. Gollum would be great. Let's show more Gollum, because Gollum's awesome. Now again, I love Treebeard, I love Merry and Pippin, and it doesn't detract from the movie as a whole. In fact, at the end, when they see Isengard and they're like, no, we're gonna beat the piss out of Isengard because Saruman's a douche, and they just throw rocks and they unleash the river, you're like, okay, this is awesome. Leading up to it was a bit like, okay, filler time, let's get back to the other stuff. Then you get to the Battle of Helms Deep. All these human beings are bottlenecked into this little stronghold, and they're like, we're totally gonna hold this. 10,000 Uruk-hai come tromping up, and they're like, yeah, I don't think you're going to. In fact, I'll bet you $1. They don't really bet $1. They just start beating the shit out of the place. And the battle is awesome, and it's intense, and it's the climax of the movie. You see, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers is that middle mark. Fellowship of the Ring, it was really cool seeing this fellowship, the introduction to the characters and the world. You're just in awe for the entire thing. So The Two Towers, you're familiar with the characters, so now they're just in a dire situation. And it's really great and really cool. However, that's the immortal battle is, ooh, which one's better? Fellowship of the Ring or Two Towers? For me, I like Fellowship of the Ring more than Two Towers. I can watch Fellowship of the Ring every day. Two Towers is a great chapter to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. They take the dialogue and characters a little further. It's funnier than Fellowship of the Ring also. The dialogue between Gimli and Legolas has more humor to it. The movie itself has more humor in it. I suppose you need that. Otherwise, you'll be like, wow, from the Shire to this is almost culture shock. Things are just going very badly for the good guys. However, although I love Fellowship of the Ring a little more than Two Towers, the Lord of the Rings trilogy as a whole remains the pinnacle of epic. They're personally growing. The interaction between the characters is bigger. It's growing also. The friendship between Legolas and Gimli, that's growing, and it's a dwarf and an elf. That shouldn't happen, not in this world. Samwise Gamgee finds his role with Frodo. Frodo's just being burdened by this ring, and Gollum is the scene stealer. A couple scenes that slow down with the walking tree doesn't change the fact that The Two Towers is still completely epic and badass. And The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers is awesome-tacular. Alright, so The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, what did you think of it, and what did you think of it compared to The Fellowship of the Ring? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.